Amazing discovery, Soldier and his K9 exposed a touching secret behind a little girl's whisper. Jack Hayes stood in the park, a scattered mob of memories swirling like the leaves caught in the autumn wind. Once, it had been a sanctuary in his childhood. Now, the familiar surroundings felt foreign, like a forgotten war-torn village, and right beside him, Max, his loyal K9 partner, kept alert, mirroring the unease that gnawed at Jack's gut. Having returned from the chaos of the battlefield, he now faced the quiet chaos of his mind, a battlefield lined with shadows and echoes he couldn't seem to escape. The laughter of children pierced his silence, but it only amplified the disconnect. Jack watched a group play tag, their faces aglow with innocence, contrasting sharply with the scars he carried. What did they know of loss? Of survival? He gripped Max's collar tighter, the familiar sensation somewhat grounding him. Today, he was determined to take a small step to reconnect with the community that had once sung his name, now reduced to a mere whisper of nostalgia. Then he heard a child's voice, soft and curious. "Can you tell me your secrets?" She was kneeling before Max, her wide eyes sparkling with wonder. Jack's heart tightened. A little girl named Lily was resting her hand on Max's head, unbothered by the scars of war, only facing the warmth of a dog's love. He couldn't help but approach, his knees creaking as he lowered himself to her level. She beamed, claiming the dog replied to her soft whispers. Skepticism tugged at him, but the purity in her voice caught him off guard. As they talked, Jack discovered Lily's hurdles. Her laughter was often overshadowed by the bullies at school, teasing her for her single mother's struggles. He could relate. The weight of family values and the echoes of resilience hardened in him when his own mother fought to keep their home. Despite the heavy truths, Jack felt something kindling within, an unexpected connection with her spirit. "I tell Max everything," she revealed, innocence threading her words. He nodded, swallowing the emotions that brewed like a storm. It tore at him to see her so fragile, just as he had been when the nightmares of conflict reigned. He lingered on the idea of advocating for her, believing in her unrecognized talent for artistry. Before he could fully commit, the air shifted abruptly. The town held a threat, a decision that could obliterate the very heartbeat of the place he once thrived in. Jack's thoughts spiraled. How could he protect Lily and her dreams? He felt a familiar panic. What if he could not save them? The specter of his own battles loomed large, urging him to retreat, while rallying cries for assistance echoed in his mind. He stood at a metaphorical precipice, fear and determination locked in an eternal struggle within him. Crushed under the weight of expectations, Jack felt the propelling urge to nurture her talent warring with the encroaching dread of his past. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The moment hung in the air, raw and unrelenting. Just when Jack thought he could harness the courage to reclaim his life by nurturing another, the shadows from his past beckoned again, shattering his resolve with whispers of inadequacy. Could he truly be anything more than the soldier defined by his ghosts? Torn between fighting for Lily and confronting his own deep-seated demons, Jack lingered on the threshold of despair and hope. The tension coiling tighter with every heartbeat urged him to act, but the specter of failure loomed just as large. Jack's mind raced as the laughter of children echoed in stark contrast to the silent war that waged inside him. The vibrant joy embodied by Lily and her friends called out to a part of him buried beneath layers of turmoil. Just moments before, he had felt as though he stood at the edge of a chasm, with panic whispering doubts of worthiness. But now, he sensed a flicker of resolve igniting within him, a desire to step forward instead of retreating. "Lily," he said, his voice trembling but resolute, "how would you feel if we worked on some art together? I've seen your sketches, and I think you have real talent." Her eyes sparkled with surprise and delight, and for a brief instant, Jack saw the weight on her shoulders lift. The prospect of mentorship nudged at him the echoes of his own artistic aspirations, long drowned out by the clamoring sounds of war, began to call again. He could help her navigate her struggles, just as he had fought to navigate his own pain. Yet the dual threat lingered. What if the past came back to haunt him, just as it always did? What if I'm not good enough to help? The thought whispered in the recesses of his mind. But he quickly pushed it aside, recognizing this moment as a gamble worth taking. To cancel the possibility of progress through fear would be a betrayal, not only to Lily but to himself. Together, they made plans. Their first art session would be a mix of joy and healing. He needed it as much as she did. It was then that he decided to face the looming decision that had cast a shadow over him since his return, the town's devastating proposal threatening the very heart of where he belonged. The following week engulfed Jack in a blur of preparation. As he gathered supplies for their first artistic endeavor, he fought against the familiar grip of anxiety. Each brush he picked up felt heavy with expectation. Would he be enough to support Lily? The weight of his uncertainty clipped at his confidence, yet the thought of her enthusiasm fortified him. The day arrived, serene yet charged with tension. Jack set up in the park where they had first met, Max lying beside him, watchful and ever loyal. As Lily approached, the subtle anxiety in Jack's gut ebbed slightly. He remembered the bond they had begun to forge, the way she had breathed life into his understanding of resilience and joy. "Jack!" she exclaimed, her delight shining like a beacon. "Ready to let those secrets out?" He grinned, masking the trepidation lurking beneath the surface. The session began, each stroke of paint a step closer to realization for both of them. As Lily lost herself in her creativity, Jack's own memories of art, the comfort and expression it brought, began to unfold. But deep in the midst of her laughter and the splatter of color, the looming deadline of the town's decision clawed at his thoughts. It would take place in just a few days, and he wrestled with the burning question: how could he show up for both her and the community when he felt so fractured? He finally had to ask himself, could he decipher the whispers of his past, confront them head-on, and reclaim not just his role as a soldier but as a mentor, a protector? The struggle against himself surged in intensity, and as he glanced at Lily, the stirring of hope sparked in him once more. But something deeper stirred within Jack, a realization that would change the course of his journey. What if he had the ability to not only protect but also to inspire and perhaps in turn, heal himself? It was in that moment, amid colors and laughter, that a decision loomed larger than Lily's shared secrets. The time had come to face the ghosts alone and to step boldly into the possibility of true reclamation, for both him and the life that had evaded him for far too long. He breathed in, knowing the struggle had just begun, not only against the burdens of his past but also for Lily's future. With the shadows of doubt trailing closely behind him, Jack resolved to confront the town's decision head-on, unearthing the hidden strength that lay dormant within him. As he picked up the brush to assist Lily, a single thought hammered at his consciousness, a call to action demanding he face the consequences lurking in the corners of his life. Little did he know, the approaching confrontation would lead him to an unexpected ally, one whose existence could alter the trajectory of both his own fate and that of Lily's dreams. As the vibrant colors of their canvas began to take shape, Jack felt a breath of life breathe into his stillness. Each stroke he applied encouraged not just Lily, but also himself, unearthing buried embers of his passion. The sunlight danced through the trees, dappling their workspace, heightening the joy swirling around them. It stirred memories of his own artistic exploration, days spent alone crafting, feeling invincible against the world's scrutiny. "Look at that!" Lily exclaimed, her voice piercing the haze of Jack's reverie. She pointed to the sunrays sketched alongside the horizon on their canvas. "It's like the sun is smiling." Jack marveled at her enthusiasm, which spread like wildfire. It rekindled something dormant within him, a glimmer of purpose started to solidify. If he could guide her pursuits, perhaps it would illuminate his own path. The thought ignited warmth within, yet the inevitable reminder of impending decisions loomed. That town meeting was just days away. With each layer of paint, Jack wrestled with fear and anticipation. He held back the tide of uncertainty that clawed at the edges of his mind, questioning his capability to not only influence a budding artist but to also defend what he believed in against that political storm. Would he stand tall for Lily when the world seemed ready to pull him back down? "Jack, what do you think?" Lily's question pulled him back from his thoughts. She looked up, paintbrush poised and waiting for his critique on her latest creation, a mural of warriors, not fighting with weapons but with colors and joy. "It's powerful," he replied, a smile breaking through his internal conflict. "These warriors remind us that creativity is a strength." Her beaming expression melted some of his doubts, pushing him closer to clarity. Jack was rediscovering not only his passion for art but also an unspoken determination to rise above all that had plagued him. Yet, even as laughter painted their open space bright, a darker anticipation swallowed portions of his joy. Jack's pulse quickened, but he refused to allow fear to wrap its tendrils around their moment. Instead, he leaned into the feeling, recognizing it not as a barrier, but as a powerful, urgent reminder of the battle approaching. Upon returning home that evening, he rifled through old sketches, memories woven in the margins of his life. Each drawing revealed glimpses of who he used to be, the fighter against his demons, both on and off the battlefield. He pulled out his journal, pages swollen with thoughts and grieving memories. A sense of urgency coalesced within him. There was much at stake, not just for his own future, but for Lily's burgeoning talent and hopes. Could he dig deep enough to channel his experiences into resilience, not just for himself, but as a guide for her? Before sleep beckoned him, Jack carved out a plan. This confrontation with the town could not only reclaim the community's heart, it could also protect Lily's dreams. He wrote several speeches, crafted arguments for preservation, and drew connections between art's power and the soul of the town. By morning, clarity propelled him to action. He understood that this wasn't merely a fight to save a place, it was about restoring color to the lives tangled in despair, his own included. The next day, with Lily's laughter still echoing in his heart, he strode purposefully into the town hall meeting. As he stood in front of the assembled crowd, anxiety mingled with newfound courage. Would their compassion extend to the memories he hoped to combat? He opened his mouth to speak, but an unexpected voice interrupted, shaking his resolve. "I don't think your little art project will save anything." The harsh laughter that followed pierced through his thoughts, drawing a line in the sand. This was a confrontation more immediate than he anticipated. Now he had to face not only the town but also individual antagonisms that threatened to unravel everything. As doubts circled like vultures, Jack took a deep breath, bracing himself for the challenge that could define not just his future, but that of Lily's art as well. In the face of adversity, he knew this was just the beginning, because rebuilding a life was never a solitary effort. Jack's determination surged in that moment, but would it be enough to withstand the potent forces against them? Jack's heart raced, the incredulity of the jeer echoing in his mind like a warped record. He quickly scanned the room, trying to gauge the reactions of the townspeople. Some faces wore expressions of disdain while others intrigued him, their brows furrowed in concern or curiosity. But amidst that cacophony of emotion, he spotted Lily, her eyes wide and uncertain. Taking a step forward, Jack felt the weight of the moment press against him. "What I am proposing," he began, voice firmer than he felt, "isn't just to preserve an art project. It's an invitation to rediscover our shared spirit and unity." Each word was a brick, building his resolve as he spoke. He searched for sincerity and connection, aware that if he faltered now, it would not just be a lost battle, it would be a lost opportunity for Lily and everyone who believed in the power of creation. The laughter dwindled, substituted by a tense silence, all eyes on him. Jack seized the moment. Art remains a beacon of hope, especially in times of turmoil. Look around us, this town is more than bricks and mortar. It's about the dreams, the stories we weave, and the laughter of children who look at their world's colors. With each gesture, he drew a mental picture of their community, a place vibrant with memories, laughter, and creativity. His heart thumped painfully in his chest as he spoke not just to the crowd, but to his own fears. Could he reclaim the man who once fought for something outside of himself? Was he capable of lighting that torch of inspiration once again? Look at the mural Lily painted, he continued, gesturing to where her handiwork danced with joy. These warriors she created are symbols of strength. They remind us that there's always a battle to choose, one fought with compassion and imagination, not just fists or derision. He could see Lily Hope unglue the tightness from his shoulders. Her belief in him grounded him. Stirring within him came a revelation, the deep realization that vulnerability could be a source of strength. Standing there, he opened himself to the skeptical gazes around him. I'm just a man who has learned that the darkest days can't smother the brightness we can create together. This is a time for us to rally, to breathe life into our future through art. A few heads nodded in the crowd. Jack pressed on, wondering if he could convince them that their collective histories were more valuable than any political agenda. He recalled moments from his past, exposing his fears and failures. He shared how art had lifted him from desolation, how it had transformed him from being a soldier into a guide. Voices murmured amongst themselves, weighing his words against their preconceived notions. Then, the voice from before called out again. And what happens when the canvas is empty? What will you do then? The challenge lingered in the air, a beast that needed to be confronted. His heart thundered as he processed the question. Jack stood at the precipice of vulnerability and confidence. When the canvas is empty, that's when our next stories begin, he answered, steeling himself against the laughter. What we create together will paint our journey forward. We've all lost something. But together, we can make something worth remembering. He felt a shift, a subtle energy, like a wave of acknowledgement rippling through the crowd. Jack could sense his walls beginning to crack, maybe even dismantle, empowering him to share more of himself. Yet, with the remnants of doubt still clutching at him, he braced himself for the fallout of his sincerity. Just then, a firm voice punctured the air. And what do you propose we do instead? It was a woman with a strong presence, her hands resting on her hips. This was not just about presenting art, it was a call to action. The next surge of adrenaline coiled in Jack's belly, pushing him to confront the unknown. Would he stumble or rise? The pivotal moment loomed, one that could not only define his standing with the community but reveal whether he truly believed in the power of art to change hearts, starting with his own. Each decision leading to the next would test him like never before, and he realized he had no fallback plan. What he didn't understand at that moment was that vulnerability was the strongest armor he could wear. The questions breathing into him felt like a siren, calling him deeper into the journey he was destined to take. The real battle was just beginning, and Jack was ready to fight not just for the town, he was ready to fight for himself. Jack's mind raced as he locked eyes with the woman, whose question hung in the air like the dense fog that often rolled through the town. It was a challenge wrapped in urgency, and his heart pounded with a mix of dread and warmth. Here lay his crossroads, he could either retreat into the comfort of silence or step forward into the fire of possibility. With shaky breath, Jack forced himself to push against the fear clawing at his mind. What if we start by creating spaces for people to share their stories? Spaces that might seem empty now, but can be filled with their laughter, their pain, their creativity. We can build workshops, host open mic nights, anything that gives voice to those who feel unheard. The suggestion crystallized in his mind. It wasn't just an idea but a lifeline, a way to tether their fragmented community back together. The crowd's whispers turned into a low hum as doubt crept into the expressions of some while others remained captivated, their intrigue growing. He could sense the pendulum of their attention swinging, balancing on the edge of skepticism and hope. Lily's gaze remained unwavering, a bright spot in the sea of uncertainty. But what if no one feels like sharing? The woman pressed, defining the core of Jack's fears. Then we listen, Jack replied, his voice steadier, fueled now by a rising conviction. Everyone has a story worth telling. Sometimes, the hardest part is knowing how to begin. I've been there. I know what it's like to feel like your voice has been lost in the noise. A small spark ignited inside him, bolstered by the notion that vulnerability could pave the way to discovery not just for others, but for himself. The woman's demeanor softened slightly, her critical stance edging towards curiosity. But skepticism still reflected in the upturned corners of her mouth. And what's the first step? Her challenge felt like a boulder, one he needed to roll uphill. If we can gather even just a few of us to brainstorm what these creative spaces could look like, it becomes our canvas to fill. We can't wait for perfect conditions. We must start with what we have, Jack said, conviction weaving through his words. The subtle tension between his heart and mind began to settle. The people in front of him were not his adversaries, they were potential allies. Could it be that simple? She asked, tilting her head as if weighing the possibility against her own experiences. It was a pivotal moment. Jack realized that everyone was walking around with layers of their own battles, similar to his. It can be. Nothing great begins without an idea, a humble start. Not every story needs grandeur, it simply needs authenticity. He could feel the chains of his past loosening, like armor being cast aside. Aren't you afraid of failing? A voice chimed from the back. Yes, he replied without hesitation. But I'd rather fail trying than never attempt at all. If we keep stalling, we risk losing all the stories that bring us together or light fires within us. The murmurs intensified, some faces brightened with a flicker of understanding. There was an undeniable shift, an awareness creeping into the hearts of those present. With every second that passed, the urgency of their situation pressed on him, tantalizingly clear he had to transform this moment into a movement. And as the crowd began to murmur amongst themselves, debating the merits of his proposals, Jack seized the chance to look deeper within himself. He could feel the walls he'd built around his past slowly crumbling. Perhaps it wasn't about just carrying the burden of his history. Instead, it was about turning that history into a bridge for others, including Lily. Then, the woman from before stepped forward once more, her eyes now alight with curiosity. You sound certain, but where does this certainty come from? Jack's answer lingered on the tip of his tongue, wrapped in the complexity of his journey. It was more than just the scars of war or his time spent feeling lost. It was the knowledge that courage was not the absence of fear, but the fierce determination to create despite it. But he held back, realizing that this was a question for himself, too. That's the real question, isn't it? He said, a slight smile dawning on his face. Finding clarity amidst the chaos will be another challenge I accept. Jack was aware that every question, every challenge, was just another stepping stone on his path to redemption. As he looked into the sea of faces, their questioning gazes spurring him on, he felt the weight of the moment coiling around his chest like a source of strength rather than fear. Yet, the reality remained, the test of his conviction, of their readiness for change, was only just beginning. Would the town respond to his call, or would he stand alone in this fight for his own identity? With uncharted territory ahead, Jack knew he was at the precipice of something profound, and the resurgence of his own spirit depended on their embrace of this journey. Jack stood in the center of the room, an unseen tether pulling him between the crowd's murmur and the beat of his own heart. He could feel the weight of their gazes, some filled with skepticism, others tinged with hope, and he realized that now more than ever, he needed to solidify his purpose. The response he craved, a spark of inspiration among his peers, wasn't just about overcoming their doubts, it was also a quest to illuminate the corners of his own soul that lay cloaked in uncertainty. Drawing a deep breath, he readied himself for the next phase of his endeavor. Let's start with something simple, he proposed, his tone steady, invoking anticipation. I invite each of you to write down a moment that shaped you. It can be profound or mundane, what matters is how it shaped you. Nobody has to share if they don't want to, but I'll start. I'll put my vulnerability on the table. As he held his notepad, Jack was unflinchingly conscious of the narratives he had buried. A soldier, he had learned to conceal emotional wounds, to armor himself in stoicism. But now, he was peeling back layers of that armor. When I was away, far from home, the things I missed were not just the tangible comforts, but the everyday moments, the laughter, the shared stories. I realized those moments are what make us human. As silence enveloped the room, he could sense a subtle shift. Heads nodded, new faces softened, and amidst the questioning glimmers, a few pens began to scratch against paper. The act had empowered him, and he found himself drawing strength from the responses of those around him. They were reflecting on their own experiences, their unique perspectives unfolding with each passing moment. With every glance his way, Jack registered a connection forming not merely to himself, but to the shared humanity of others. As he observed a few faces begin to light up with recognition, echoes of his own story emerged in whispers of theirs, entwining their shadows with his light. Yet as he encouraged further engagement, doubt seeped in once more. He recalled the woman's penetrating gaze questioning his resolve. Did he truly have enough grit and resilience to navigate this venture? Could these small moments truly catalyze a deeper change? Perhaps we should consider a space beyond just writing, he offered, allowing his thoughts to wander. A way to create art or even laughter. Share music. Let us blend creativity with vulnerability. The response was palpable. Some faces lit with enthusiasm, others with trepidation, but all were moving. There was a sense of shared purpose animating the air, but Jack understood that attraction to the idea didn't guarantee commitment. Would they follow through? He felt alive in the bubble of uncertainty, cherishing the growth spurred by introspection. But his journey was far from complete, each step forward felt delicate, riddled with potential pitfalls he had to navigate. As the meeting wore on, Jack could feel the excitement weaving together their individual stories, but an unsettling realization crept in. For every light that flickered, there were shadows that still loomed. It was a persistent reminder of fear and potential rejection that lay at the heart of sharing. Would he be able to cultivate the courage in others to brave their fears as he had begun to? The whisper of doubt churned inside him. It was easy to inspire, but could he ignite transformation? The truth remained that while he nudged the crowd toward storytelling, he was grappling with his own fears of inadequacy. "Let us be raw," he said suddenly, disrupting the swirling thoughts in his mind. "Can we commit, not just to creating spaces, but to showing up authentically for each other, even when it feels uncomfortable? That's where the magic lies." A thinking silence fell over the room, pregnant with possibility. Jack's breath hitched, feeling a flicker of hope wrestle against the weight of his doubt. Was he brave enough to fully embrace the challenge himself? As the discussions raged on in quiet bursts around him, Jack drew in a breath, firming his resolve. His journey would require more than motivation, it would demand courage from deeper within. Through the darkness of uncertainty emerged a pinprick of determination, a realization that it wasn't just about leading others but also about dismantling his own inadequacies. The woman's questioning gaze echoed in his mind. Where does this certainty come from? He wouldn't find the answer in solitude or retreat. The moment hung tantalizingly in the air, waiting for him to grasp it. Would he summon the strength to confront his inner fears? Or would he retreat back to silence, allowing the journey of self-discovery to slip through his grasp? Jack's heart raced as he stood at that pivotal intersection, caught between fear and possibility, fully aware that the path ahead was about to become even more intense. The energy in the room shifted as conversations began to weave a more intricate tapestry of connection and reflection. Jack felt the anticipation in the air, the collective heartbeat of those willing to share their truths. Would this pulsing energy translate into something more profound? Could it inspire those who hid behind walls of doubt to confront their stories, just as he had begun to? As he engaged with their discussions, Jack noticed familiar fears echoing in the voices of others. The hesitance, the self-doubt, it resonated deeply within him. He could see it in the way people clenched their pens, or furrowed their brows, struggling to articulate the weight of their experiences. Did he have the power to help them navigate these shadows? "Let us remember," Jack interjected gently, "that it's okay to feel vulnerable. That's not a weakness, it's a path to strength." He felt the gravity of his words sink into the quiet atmosphere as nods circled back to him. But the challenges merely morphed, no longer just internal but external too. Jack faced the daunting task of not just combating his insecurities but also nurturing an environment receptive to honesty. He perceived the delicate dance of expectations, the unspoken belief that he should have all the answers, and felt that familiar twist of inadequacy. The woman with the piercing gaze was back in his thoughts, stirring discomfort again. What if he couldn't live up to the vision he had imagined? What if these efforts didn't ignite the transformative journey he sought? He had wrestled at length with fear in his own life, now he was accountable for helping others wrestle with theirs too. Through clenched hands and bracing thoughts, Jack began to craft his strategy. I propose we create experiences, not just discussions. Next time, let us not only share our stories but transform them into something we can see and feel. Let us bring art into this space. Express ourselves in a way that transcends words. This idea hung in the room like the crispness of fresh paint. Jack watched faces illuminate with interest, some ablaze with eagerness while others remained cautious but intrigued. He understood that these were the same individuals whose stories demanded to be expressed not just through writing but through mediums they felt empowered by, be it painting, music, or performance. He could feel a spark of inspiration unfurl, yet still, the shadow lingered. Would he follow through on this vision, facing the intricacies of leadership? Or was he destined to falter when the moment came to translate inspiration into action? Encouraged by the nods, Jack found himself reaching deep. We'll need courage to try, to fail, and try again. It requires commitment not only to share but to engage completely with the creative process. We may stumble, but those stumbles are part of the journey. Let's commit to being present for each other. With each word, Jack felt the tremors of his self-doubt ebb slightly. He was not merely vocalizing an idea but beckoning those around him to advance into a realm where growth could flourish through creativity, a path he himself needed to tread. But the complexity of integrating vulnerability with creativity remained. Such a leap demanded trust, not just between him and his peers but within himself as well. Could he cultivate that trust in a phase of indecision? What if the doubts that shadowed him prevented others from taking that leap? The silence, thick with contemplation, was punctuated by questions yet unanswered. Jack's resolve hung by a thread. But one thought remained persistent: each person's journey wouldn't be solitary, they would share this path, navigating the ebbs and flows of transformation together. Next week, we'll meet, he declared, determination spilling through his uncertainty. Bring a piece of art, a song, something that speaks your truth. Let us discover that magic together. The weight of his commitment, both exhilarating and terrifying, set in. Jack's heart raced once more, alive with the possibility of transformation, his and theirs. He felt the flicker of bravery he desperately searched for, yet uncertainty loomed. What awaited them at their next confrontation, the creative expressions about to unravel? Would they each find their voices or crumble under the weight of expectation? Jack swallowed hard. He was ready to explore, ready to lead. But deep within lingered the concern: was he prepared for the revealing truths that came with unearthing the shadows? A sense of resolution leaned against uncertain fear as he prepared to delve into the creative spaces they were about to explore, grappling with how far he would go to uphold this promise. As he stepped away from the gathering, the question loomed like a specter: how debilitating would the process be if he ultimately faced revelations he'd rather avoid? And what voices would emerge from the depths? The following week arrived too soon, or perhaps, just in time for Jack. The anticipation that had brewed in the days leading up to their meeting danced along the edges of his anxiety. Each morning, he would sit with a warm cup of coffee, heart racing, tracing the outline of his own thoughts and relentless self-doubt. He was preparing not just for a session, he was forging a pact, one that demanded connection and authenticity from everyone involved, including himself. As he approached the familiar venue, every step felt heavy with expectation. Jack momentarily paused, inhaling deeply before entering. He had ventured into numerous social situations before, but this time felt starkly different. That edgy exhilaration cracked alongside his fears, somehow winding around the fibers of his resolve. He knew this meeting was about more than art, it was about vulnerability. Upon entering, Jack observed his peers milling about, cautiously clutching their chosen pieces, artistic expressions tangling with anxiety. The atmosphere hummed with quiet chatter but also whispered undertones of fear and hidden potential. His heart tightened, these people were laying their souls bare, and he felt the weight of that responsibility. "Let us find a space," Jack urged, motioning toward an open area flooded with natural light. They gathered in a semicircle, eyes curious but uncertain. Jack cleared his throat, attempting to frame the moment with confidence. "Today, we're going to create. We're going to express what lies within and perhaps discover unexpected truths in the process." He glanced around, catching the wary gaze of a man he recognized from previous meetings, someone who always seemed on the brink of sharing but never quite there. Jack felt a twinge of empathy. Perhaps this man's perspective mirrored his. The pain of hesitance amplified by the fear of exposure. "Your fears do not define you," Jack began, aiming to break the tension. "Let us encourage one another. Through art, we reveal the untold stories hiding behind our silence. This is a space free of judgment, where all expressions are welcomed." The room stirred slightly, but he sensed the need for more. "Why don't we start by sharing why we chose our respective pieces? What is the story you want to tell?" As he opened the floor, Jack's voice steadied, albeit laden with his own trepidation. One by one, they shared. Stories poured out like cracked dam waters. Joy, heartbreak, confusion, and resolution unfolded around them, and Jack felt a compelling surge of unity amid their collective vulnerability. Yet, within that warmth lingered a chill of recognition. Amidst the revelations, he found himself shrinking into the shadow of his own vulnerabilities. When it finally came time for Jack to share, he hesitated, pondering his choice of art. Sure, he had chosen something he believed could embody his truth, but the vulnerability required to really lay himself bare felt exponential. His palms slicked with perspiration as he finally held up a painting he created, a swirling canvas of colors clashing violently, where light struggled against darkness. "I painted this," he stammered slightly, "to reflect chaos but also hope. It's a reminder that both exist within us, a constant battle. I've often felt overwhelmed by my darkness, the doubts I carry, and the fear of failing others. But it's here, within this turmoil, that I find growth." Silence enfolded them. But instead of a sense of relief or closure, the air thickened with lingering discomfort, challenging Jack in ways deeper than he anticipated. Would they understand or recoil? Finally, a voice broke through the man from before. "It's been harder for me to open up. I've hidden behind walls for so long, it's scary to break them down. Your honesty helps. I feel I can try." The dynamics shifted. Suddenly, Jack's burdens didn't seem as isolating. Perhaps by wrestling with their shadows together, they could forge connections beyond their individual fears. Each person who spoke left him with a grain of hope mixed with trepidation as the stakes of frankness rose. By the end of the session, they had all created something tethered to their truths, an amalgamation of experiences. The connection forged through shared vulnerability opened the doorway to growth. Yet, the specter of deeper revelations lingered. As they wrapped up, Jack sensed an unsettling ache within. The self-confrontation was only beginning. Each story shared was a thread in a larger tapestry yet to be completed. Would he be able to lead them further into those depths, navigating the darker corners of their experiences while grappling with his own emerging truths? His breath hitched. The real challenge lay ahead. He felt cracks forming in the facade of his bravery. What lay beneath the surface, waiting to be brought to light? Jack brushed his hands against the coolness of his painting, steeling himself for the next meeting's unfolding. And in that moment, the thought began to simmer, coaxing its way into his consciousness. Would he be ready to confront what they might unearth together if it led them to abandon their fears for the terrifying vulnerability of truth? As the days trickled by, Jack found himself caught in a whirlwind of anticipation and dread. The initial session had unearthed something profound within him, yet the looming question haunted him: was he truly ready to guide others into their shadows while still grappling with his own? Each morning began with a nagging sense of unrest that felt familiar. The exhilaration of revelation was intertwined with an insistent critic in his mind. What if they expected him to lead them deeper into their vulnerabilities, yet he couldn't even navigate his own tumult? The juxtaposition of intellectual understanding and emotional readiness twisted like an intricate knot, challenging his self-perception. In the silence of his studio, surrounded by half-finished canvases and the persistent scent of acrylic paint, Jack faced an uncomfortable truth. He wasn't simply confronting fears, he was confronting a lifetime of self-doubt and a reluctance to fully embrace his artist identity. As he stared at the blank canvas before him, he battled the impulse to abandon his passion for what kind of artist was he if he couldn't articulate his own complexities. During the week, the anticipation of the upcoming meeting morphed into a gnawing anxiety. Every brushstroke he attempted felt like an echo of his uncertainties, a wavering extension of his psyche. The more he tried to articulate his feelings through paint, the more elusive clarity became. Crestfallen, Jack questioned whether any of what he created would resonate with those he aimed to help. On the morning of the next meeting, he took a moment to inhale deeply, steadying himself before stepping outside. His reflection stared back at him from the glass window, a mixture of hope and trepidation. Jack understood that to help others, he had to confront the messiness within himself first. It wasn't merely about leading, it was about embracing a shared vulnerability. Arriving at the venue, he felt the familiar weight of both responsibility and opportunity. Participants trickled in, their expressions echoing his internal chaos. The same man he recognized from the previous session caught his eye again, visibly anxious yet resolute. Jack took this recognition as a cue, an unspoken encouragement. They were all wrestling with their shadows together. Today, he began, his voice firm yet layered with empathy, I want us to dig deeper. Art can be a mirror to our souls, reflecting the complexities we often hide. Let us challenge ourselves to not just share our stories, but to delve into the emotions behind them, the struggles, the triumphs, the confusion. As each person revealed their chosen pieces, Jack listened intently. Personal reflections flourished, revealing glimpses of their raw fears and undeniable strength. The stories of uncertainty thrummed in harmony, crafting a palpable connection that wrapped around them. Yet Jack felt a growing urge to do more, to push for a level of vulnerability that went beyond the safety of words. Let us take a moment to create something together, he proposed, envisioning a canvas that embodied their collective truths. We'll approach this as a team. Each of us will contribute a brushstroke, an element that represents our emotional state today. His heart raced as their expressions shifted from anticipation to curiosity. Jack felt himself unwinding, the collaborative energy surging through him, invigorating the fear dwelling within. As they began to create, the hesitation melted away, replaced by a willingness to explore the rawness of their experiences. Jack seized a brush, diving into vibrant colors that intertwined as they pressed against the canvas, embodying a collective resilience. With each stroke shared, he let go of his inhibitions, revealing fragments of his own struggle alongside theirs. The chaos of confusion, the beauty of striving for hope, and the realization that mistakes were merely part of the journey began to take form. And amidst the collective creation, Jack felt an undeniable shift. The fears that had consumed him slowly dissipated as he inadvertently stepped into a role he hadn't anticipated, the one of co-creator, fellow sufferer and, potentially, a beacon for others navigating the darkness. As they stepped back to view the swirling amalgamation of colors, Jack's breath caught in his throat. The masterpiece portrayed their pain, vulnerability, and a tenuous thread of strength woven through the chaos. For the first time, the reflection wasn't merely of individuals, but a profound testament to shared experiences. Yet, even with this triumph, a new realization settled within him like a cold weight: understanding their depths was merely the beginning. There were still wounds to unravel, truths to confront. What lay waiting in the uncharted territories of their pasts, and how would they bravely navigate that together? Jack's excitement waned under a shadow of doubt as the newest challenge loomed large before him. Just as Jack steeled himself to delve deeper, an unsettling thought tugged at the back of his mind. What hidden truths might surface next week, and could he handle the revelations they might bring? The sun cast a warm glow through the leaves as Jack Hayes stepped into the park once more, feeling the vibrancy of life echo around him. Weeks of mentoring Lily and engaging with the community had borne unexpected fruit. He had transformed personally and professionally. No longer the soldier haunted by his past, Jack was now an architect of hope, building bridges from his struggles to those of others. Leading the art sessions had become a lifeline not just for Lily but for himself. Each stroke of the brush had begun to cleanse him of doubts, layering his experiences into something beautiful. The anxiety of not being enough was slowly being overshadowed by the growing strength that came from connection, understanding, and the collective healing that art facilitated. Jack. Lily's exuberant voice broke through the fog of his introspection. She rushed up, excitement lighting her features. "Hey, Lily. Ready to create something amazing today?" The exchange ignited a sense of purpose within him. He felt the spark of mentorship transform him, enticing others to join his journey of discovery. As they settled into their routine, the memories of his past were still present, but they no longer dictated his present. Instead, they fueled a profound empathy within him, fostering compassion for those who carried their burdens quietly. He was reclaiming not just his role but redefining it, becoming a mentor and a protector, every brushstroke solidifying the foundations of his own identity. The previous week's collective creation had escalated their artistic journey. It had surfaced vulnerabilities that connected every participant to Jack in unforeseen ways. People began sharing deeper stories, quietly unveiling their fears and struggles but also their passions and paths toward overcoming adversity. Jack realized that he didn't have to lead alone, he was also a part of this ever-evolving tapestry. Today marked the culmination of a pivotal week one in which they would showcase their art at a local gallery. As Jack looked around at the canvases filled with vibrant colors and emotive strokes, he felt a sense of accomplishment resonate within him. The personal conflicts and demons that once threatened to consume him were now shining examples of resilience and beauty. Jack had managed to secure a small space for them, a humble yet vibrant area in the community center where their work would display alongside stories from each artist. The thought ignited pride, not just in his accomplishments, but in the growth he'd been part of spurring in others. In this moment, Jack was no longer the soldier defined by scars but a man embraced by a community. As the opening for their art display drew near, anxiety coiled tightly around him. Questions loomed in his mind, whispers of doubt threatening to rear their heads again. Could he navigate this event successfully without retreating into his former self? Would those who had found solace in their work perceive him as a legitimate guide? "Jack, can we talk?" A familiar voice broke his reverie. It was the man who had initially struggled to share. Today, he looked nervous but determined. "Absolutely," Jack said, leaning closer to listen. "What's on your mind?" The man hesitated but then exhaled. "I just wanted to say thanks. Your support has pushed me to share more than I ever thought I could. Today, I'm ready to talk about my piece. I want to be part of this community, and I can't wait to express myself openly." Jack felt an overwhelming swell of gratitude. "You're absolutely ready, your voice matters." While these words were meant to encourage, they also served as a reminder that his journey mirrored the growth of the individuals he was nurturing. He wasn't just inspiring others, he was healing himself. As their art began to receive recognition and praise from visitors, Jack took a moment to step back, absorbing the encouraging reactions of his community. What had begun as a shaky path toward reconnection with his own identity had cultivated a thriving environment for collaborative growth. It was all bearing fruit. The recognition of his efforts was solid validation. Finally, it was time for Jack to step up and speak. As he approached the microphone, echoes of self-doubt crept in once more, but he dispelled them. Jack opened his heart rather than his rehearsed speech. Today, we unveil not just art but the essence of our stories, woven together through creativity. Each piece is a reminder that we all carry battles, but through expression, we find clarity, strength, and each other. His words received an excited murmur, and the warm smiles of supportive faces radiated back at him. In that moment, Jack Hayes understood deep within. No longer defined by ghosts of his past but by a renewed purpose, he had transformed himself from a silent soldier to a reverberating voice within a community embracing authenticity and vulnerability. Jack's journey had not just been about helping Lily or others, it had been about rediscovering himself, asserting his worth, and cultivating an environment where emotion could flow freely, sheltering all who stood alongside him. Together they had conquered fear, transformed trauma into art, and created something genuinely beautiful. Standing there, immersed in his profound achievement, Jack felt a wave of pure gratitude wash over him. This was fulfillment not simply in what he had built but in who he had become. Now, as Jack moved forward, intent on leading them into new dimensions of exploration and creativity, he knew this was just the beginning. The road ahead still beckoned with the unknown, but he understood something far more important: he was equipped to face whatever would come next with grace, strength, and an unwavering commitment to himself and those he cherished. This transformation demanded to be shared. As the event continued in the background, Jack felt compelled to rally his community once more. Before we go any further, you need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support for the journey we are all on together. Don't wait even one more second to share this experience with at least 5 friends who need to hear this triumph. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Each interaction makes a difference for every story we tell. Comment your reactions and plans to join us for our next exciting chapter. Together, let us continue weaving our narrative of healing and hope. The journey ahead promised to be as thrilling as the transformations behind them, and Jack Hayes was ready to embrace it all. The city could now rejoice amidst the laughter of children and the colorful creations of newfound artists, each voice echoing that our stories matter, and together, they could redefine what it means to overcome.